it seems like AI is everywhere these days, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all anyone's talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially all this stuff about ChatGPT and these big large language models.
Yeah, definitely a lot of buzz.
It really is exciting stuff.
Yeah,
I think we can both agree on that.
absolutely.
But, let's be real for a second. Those big AIs, they can be pretty pricey and a bit of a black box sometimes, right?
Yeah, you don't always know what's going on under the hood.
Exactly. And that got me thinking, like, what if you could just, like, train your own AI?
Oh, interesting.
Something, totally customized for exactly what you need.
Yeah, like tailored for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's actually what we're diving into today in this deep dive.
Cool.
We found this really interesting blog post from builder.io.
Okay.
And they're this company that actually did this. They built their own AI to convert designs,
Yeah.
from that design tool, Figma,
Right.
directly into code.
Wow.
I know, it's mind-blowing when you think about it. Like, imagine the possibilities if you could do something like that for your own work.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So, they built their own AI, huh?
Yeah, they did.
I'm curious, like, why they even went that route. Why not just use one of the big pre-trained language models? Seems a lot easier.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, why reinvent the wheel?
Exactly.
Well, it turns out they actually tried that first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they thought, hey, a large language model, that'll be the quick solution.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it wasn't that simple.
What happened?
Well, it was actually pretty slow and expensive. And on top of that, it was super unpredictable.
Huh. Yeah, those large language models can be a bit finicky.
Yeah, and the other thing was they couldn't really customize it the way they wanted to get the specific code output they needed.
I see. So it wasn't as easy as just plugging in a design and getting perfect code out.
Nope, definitely not. They realized pretty quickly that they needed a more specialized approach, something much more tailored.
Okay, so what did they do?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Instead of trying to build one giant AI that could just handle, the whole Figma to code conversion all at once, they decided to break the problem down into smaller steps, more manageable chunks.
Yeah, break it down and conquer each piece.
Exactly. And here's the part that I thought was really counterintuitive.
Okay.
They actually tried to solve as much as they could without using any AI at all.
Wait, really? Why would they do that?
I know, right? It seems kind of crazy, but they realized that some parts of the problem were actually easier to solve with just, good old-fashioned coding.
Oh, interesting.
Like, for example, they found that things like applying styles from Figma to CSS or generating just like basic layout code, they could do all that pretty efficiently with regular code.
Huh. So it's like they figured out what they didn't need AI for,
Yeah,
and that then highlighted the areas where AI could really make a difference.
exactly. They kind of pinpointed those tasks that were too complex or just honestly too time-consuming to do manually.
Okay, so those became like the prime targets for their specialized AI.
Exactly.
So what were some of those tasks that they ended up using AI for?
Well, one of the biggest challenges was figuring out how to identify images within a Figma design.
I see.
They needed a way to accurately find those images so they could, extract them and convert them into code. So that's when they turned to this, it's a type of AI called an object detection model.
So instead of using, like we talked about, a massive jack-of-all-trades AI, they brought in a specialist to just handle this one specific task.
Exactly. Like, imagine having a surgeon for a delicate procedure instead of just a general practitioner.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
But I'm thinking, even with the right AI tool for this job, there's still a lot of work involved in building and training that model.
Oh, for sure.
I can't imagine that was easy.
It was definitely a hurdle for them. And this is where the data comes in.
The data, right.
Yeah, they knew that their AI, it was only going to be as good as the data they trained it on.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. They actually have a great quote in the article. They say, "The quality of your model is entirely dependent on the quality of your data."
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So how do they go about getting that data?
Well, they got pretty creative. They realized they could tap into a huge resource of design examples. The internet.
So instead of like painstakingly creating their own data set from scratch, they just went out and found it already existing, out there in the wild.
Exactly. They wrote a program that could crawl through different websites, taking screenshots and noting where the images were within those screenshots.
Brilliant. That's a clever way to automatically generate a massive amount of real-world data.
It is, but I'm guessing they didn't just like blindly feed all this data into their model.
Right.
They mentioned data cleaning, didn't they?
Oh, they definitely did. They knew that data quality was super important.
For sure.
Even though they had this pretty clever way of collecting the data, they still had to make sure it was, accurate and reliable.
Yeah.
So they spent quite a bit of time manually verifying and cleaning the data, making sure that the images were correctly identified and tagged and all that.
It sounds like it was a very meticulous process.
It really was. They really stressed that their data was top-notch, even if it meant, way more work up front.
That's a crucial lesson for anyone thinking about building their own AI. Data prep isn't glamorous, but it's essential.
It really is. Okay, so they've got their specialized AI, they've got their high-quality data. What's next? Did they have to build their own custom software to actually train the model?
You know what's really cool? That's where things get surprisingly accessible.
Right.
They used a service by Google called Vertex AI.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It's a pretty user-friendly platform for training and deploying these machine learning models.
So you don't need to be like a coding whiz to use it.
Not at all. They basically uploaded their data set, chose an object detection model, and hit train.
Wow. That sounds almost too easy.
It's amazing how accessible AI development is becoming.
It really is.
Yeah.
And what about the cost? Wasn't that a barrier?
You're going to love this.
Yeah.
Training this specialized model on Vertex AI only cost them like $60.
Seriously. That's incredible.
It really challenges that whole idea that AI requires a massive budget.
For sure.
So with the right approach, powerful AI solutions can be within reach for pretty much anyone.
That's amazing. So the model's trained and ready to go.
Yeah.
How do they actually use it to convert Figma designs into code?
Well, after the training was finished, they deployed the model on Vertex AI, and that gave them something called an API endpoint.
Okay.
It's basically like a special web address that you can send information to, and it sends back a result.
I think I'm following. So they send their Figma design to this address, and the AI sends back the locations of all the images it found.
You got it. They integrated that AI-powered image detection into their whole workflow, and it acts like a specialized component. It handles just that one crucial task.
So they've got this image detection model going, but that's only one piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Converting a Figma design into code, that's got to be a multi-step process.
It is.
What about all the other parts?
Well, that's where their strategy of combining traditional coding with specialized AI really shines.
Okay.
They use regular code for the tasks that are easy to handle that way.
Right.
And then they brought in their custom AI to tackle that more challenging image detection part.
Okay.
And get this, they actually incorporated a large language model for one specific step.
Oh, wow.
So it's not about rejecting those tools completely. It's about using the right tool for the right job.
So it was a truly hybrid approach.
Yeah.
Mix of old school coding, specialized AI, and even a little large language model magic sprinkled in.
Exactly.
Hey.
And the result, a fast, affordable, and highly tailored AI solution that met their exact needs.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Builder.io set out to build their own AI, and they did it. And in a way that's surprisingly accessible.
Yeah, it's inspiring.
It really is. But I know our listeners are probably wondering what this all means for them.
Yeah, how can they use this?
Exactly. Like, how can they apply these insights to potentially build their own AI solutions?
That's the big question.
Yeah, it is. And we're going to dive into that right after a quick break. Okay, so we're back, and I'm still kind of wrapping my head around everything we just talked about with Builder.io and their whole AI journey. Really pretty amazing what they did.
Yeah.
But more importantly, how they did it.
Right.
So let's try to make this a little more practical for our listeners.
All right.
Like, how can they apply these insights? Could they potentially build their own AI solution?
That's the key question, right? What's exciting here is that this isn't just a story about Figma or code.
Right.
It's really about a mindset shift.
Okay.
For a long time, AI just seemed like this, super complex thing that was way out of reach for most people.
Yeah, like something only Google or Microsoft could do.
Exactly. It was something only these big companies with tons of resources could even think about. But what Builder.io is showing us, along with these other AI tools that are becoming more available, like Vertex AI, it's proving that that's just not true anymore.
It really does feel like we're at a turning point.
Yeah.
Almost like the early days of personal computers.
Oh, yeah?
Like, once upon a time, only universities and big corporations had them. But now pretty much everyone has a supercomputer in their pocket.
It's true. And just like with personal computers, as these AI tools become more accessible, we're going to see just an explosion of creativity.
I totally agree.
But, tools are only as good as the people using them.
Right.
And Builder.io's success wasn't just about the technology they used. It was really about their approach, their willingness to challenge assumptions.
They didn't just assume that using a huge pre-trained language model was the best way to go.
Yeah, exactly.
They actually tried it, found it wasn't really working for them.
Right.
And then they had to kind of step back and say, okay, what's a better solution?
They weren't afraid to go against the grain.
Yeah, they didn't get caught up in all the hype. They really thought critically about their specific needs and then weren't afraid to try something totally different.
Yeah, and that's a really powerful lesson for anyone who wants to innovate with AI.
I think so too.
Don't just follow the crowd.
Figure out what works for you.
Exactly.
The other thing that really stood out to me was how they broke the problem down.
Yeah.
They didn't try to tackle this whole Figma to code conversion all in one go.
Right.
They broke it down into these smaller, more manageable steps.
That's such an important strategy.
I think so too.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by AI. It's complex.
It really is.
But if you break it down, it starts to feel a lot more achievable.
Right.
Just focus on solving one piece at a time and you build that momentum.
Yeah, and you learn along the way.
Exactly.
And remember how they actually tried to solve as much as possible without even using AI?
Right. Like, why even use it if you don't have to? Yeah, I thought that was so smart.
It really forced them to understand the problem at a deeper level.
Yeah.
And then they could identify the areas where AI could really make a difference.
It's so important to be pragmatic about it.
Totally.
Don't just assume AI is the answer to everything.
Right.
Sometimes, those traditional methods are better, more efficient.
Sometimes it's a combination of both.
Yeah, exactly, like a hybrid approach.
Like they did.
Like Builder.io did.
Yeah, they used traditional coding where it made sense. They brought in that specialized AI for certain tasks. And then they even threw in a little bit of the large language model magic at the end.
For that one specific thing.
Exactly. So they were flexible.
Yeah.
And used the best tool for each job.
That's a key point. It's an iterative process.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to try things, to make mistakes even.
Right.
And adjust your approach as you go.
You learn by doing.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about the mindset, the approach,
right.
But there's one more crucial ingredient we haven't really touched on. Oh, and what's that? Data.
The data, right?
Data is the lifeblood of any AI project.
Builder.io stressed that point for sure.
They did. Do you remember that quote?
Oh, yeah. The quality of your model is entirely dependent on the quality of your data.
Exactly. And think about how they went about getting that data. They didn't have to create it all themselves. They just used what was out there.
Yeah, they found a shortcut.
Yeah. They built that program to crawl through websites, take screenshots, note where all the images are, a way to just automatically generate this massive data set of real-world design examples.
It's brilliant.
It is, but even with that clever solution, they didn't cut corners when it came to data quality.
Yeah, they still spent a lot of time, cleaning and verifying all that data.
Exactly. They made sure it was accurate.
That's a really valuable lesson for anyone who's working with AI.
It is.
Don't underestimate how important that data preparation is.
It might not be the most exciting part.
Definitely not.
But it is absolutely crucial for building a reliable and effective AI.
Totally. So garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
Spend the time up front to get that data right.
Yeah.
And it'll pay off in the long run.
It will.
So let's bring this all back to our listeners.
Okay.
They're probably thinking, okay, great, Builder.io did some cool stuff. But what about me?
Right.
What problem can I even solve with AI? Like, what would you say to them?
Well, I think it starts with a shift in perspective.
Okay.
Instead of looking at AI as this, big, complex, distant thing,
yeah,
we need to start seeing the world through an AI lens.
Okay, I like that. An AI lens.
Yeah.
What does that even look like? That's the million-dollar question, right? Like, how do we actually get from inspiration to action?
Right. We've talked about Builder.io and what they did and all the cool takeaways, but now it's like, okay, what's next?
Exactly.
Well, I think it starts with, like I said, a shift in perspective.
Okay.
Instead of seeing AI as this big, complex, kind of scary thing, we need to start seeing the world through what I like to call an AI lens.
Okay, I like that, an AI lens, but what does that even look like?
It means looking for patterns in your work,
Okay.
Finding those repetitive tasks or those areas where you think, maybe AI could help with this.
So it's not about replacing us humans, it's about augmenting us.
Exactly. Think about like a doctor who spends hours every day analyzing medical images. I mean, it takes a lot of expertise, but it's also time-consuming.
Right, and there's always the chance of human error.
Exactly. What if a specialized AI could analyze those images, Maybe flag potential issues so the doctor could focus on the really complex cases or spend more time with patients.
I see what you're saying. It's about freeing up the human for the things that humans are best at.
Exactly. And that's just one example. Think about education, finance, manufacturing.
Even the arts, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
AI has the potential to totally revolutionize how we work and live.
It's exciting, but I'm sure some of our listeners are probably thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but where do I even start?
It's understandable to feel a little overwhelmed,
Yeah.
but actually the first step is really simple. Remember how Builder.io started?
Mm-hmm.
Clearly define the problem you're trying to solve and be specific.
Okay, so don't just say, I want to be more efficient.
Right. Pick a specific task or process that's causing you the most pain.
Got it. So you've got your problem. How do you know if AI is even the right tool?
Put on those AI lenses, right?
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what kind of data would I need to solve this?
Okay.
And is that data even available? Can I collect it?
So the data is really key.
It is. If you can't get the right data, then you're kind of stuck.
Right.
But let's say you can get the data, then what?
What's next?
That's where those AI platforms we talked about come in.
Like Vertex AI.
Exactly. They give you the tools to actually build, train, and deploy a model. You don't even need a computer science degree.
So find the right problem, get the right data, and then use the tools.
Yeah. It's almost, dare I say it, simple.
Well, maybe not simple.
Not simple, but definitely more achievable than people think.
I think so too. And Builder.io is a perfect example.
They are.
They started with this crazy complex problem.
Converting Figma to code.
Yeah, and they just broke it down, they experimented, and ultimately they succeeded.
And you can too. With the right mindset and a willingness to learn.
And a little persistence, you can do amazing things with AI.
Exactly. So listeners, we leave you with this challenge.
Ooh, a challenge. I like it.
What will your AI creation be?
Ooh, good question.
What problem will you solve? Go build something amazing.
We can't wait to see what you come up with.
We can't.
And that wraps up our deep dive into building your own AI. Hopefully this episode has sparked your curiosity and given you some practical tips to get started.
And maybe even inspired you.
Definitely.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries.
And we'll see you in the next deep dive.